Greetings and salutations, people of planet Earth. I am John Maffio, aka MaffmanJones. Welcome to the newest edition of this movie show. It still doesn't have a title, but it is a movie show, and we talk about movies, entertainment, so therefore, mic drop. There's no mic drop. I didn't have a punchline to that. Anyway, today we're going to be talking about San Diego Comic-Con news because I'm still overwhelmed by the amount of information that came out of Comic-Con this year, and it always happens every year. And I think I'm prepared. I have it all written down. It's going to be a long video, so I don't want to waste any time. But anybody who didn't go to Comic-Con or doesn't know about Comic-Con, it's a place that people go to buy comics and celebrate comic book characters. That was a thing 20 years ago. Now it's more of a great place to promote big blockbuster movies and television shows that are releasing in the coming years. And people happen to sometimes go to certain aisles in Comic-Con and buy comics or things of value that happen to relate to comic book characters or pop culture. And it's a very niche thing, but it's become very popular over the past 5-10 years. And even in New York, it used to be quiet. First time I went in 2010, I bought my ticket on the Sunday that I went. Now you have to buy it the day of that it goes on sale, months before, or you're not getting in. It's crazy. So I want to talk about trailers first. Gun Maverick, which is a sequel to Top Gun, which starred Tom Cruise and Tom Skerritt and the great Val Kilmer as the Iceman. Really wonderful little 80s movie. It looks like this trailer is mimicking a lot of the same beats of that movie, but in a more modernized way, and Tom Cruise actually flying and piloting these aircrafts. And it looks beautiful. It's directed by the same guy who did Oblivion. And Joseph starts with a K. He's a really visually incredible director. And I'm excited for this. There's a great cast in here. You got Miles Teller. You got Glenn Howerton. You got a lot of great people. Like Jennifer Connelly. There's a lot of great actors in this. And I'm looking forward to seeing this movie just because I'm a fan of the first one. And even if it mimics the same beats as the first movie, if it's well made and it's fun, I'll be into it. Next, we have It Chapter 2, the final chapter. It's a great trailer. If you weren't sold on it before, I don't think you're not going to be sold on it this time, but it does seem like they're going more for the scares and less of the ha-has. First movie was more of a coming-age ha-ha type of movie, and it was also scary, but this movie seems like it's leaning more into the scares. And I like that because the second chapter of the TV miniseries, the last 2 hours of it anyway, was the most underwhelming part of it for me. Even when I was a kid, I didn't like it as much as I liked the first part, where the kids were being terrorized by this clown. And if they could somehow make this final part of the movie, the final part of the story, great. Yeah, I mean, I love the first one. If you know me, it's in my top 5 movies of the year from 2017. I love the cast of this. I love what they're going for. I love Andy Muschietti. And let's do it. And finally, I don't know if this is a Comic-Con trailer, but the trailer for Cats came out, directed by Tom Hooper, and yikes. That's all I have to say. This trailer speaks for itself. They're using high-end technology and motion capture to create these cats. You have a lot of well-known actors, well-recognized talent, musicians, Jason Derulo, Taylor Swift, James Corden, Jennifer Hudson, Idris Elba. It all looks very creepy. If I'm 7 or 8 years old and I see that trailer, I'm having nightmares for 3 months. I said it on Stardust, but Dark Crystal as a movie, the Jim Henson Project, ruined my life for about 2 years. And that's just puppetry. If I had seen this trailer when I was a kid, if this was something that existed back then, or if I was growing up at the age that I was now watching this trailer, I would be dead. I would not. It's really terrifying. It might be beautiful at the end of the day, but just seeing it and reacting to it, wow. There's nothing else to say. Just if you haven't seen it, watch the trailer, and you'll know what I'm talking about. And then the other thing I want to mention is that Halloween, the reboot, or not really a reboot, it was a sequel to the original 1978 Halloween, directed by John Carpenter. It came out last October. It was a entertaining horror movie. I didn't really care for it much afterwards, though. It's a great little movie that's fun to watch in theaters, and it's enjoyable, I'm sure, on DVD and home video. Like, I'm talking like it's like the early 2000s, like on streaming services or whatever. But I have no desire to rewatch it immediately. I'm a big fan of the old movies. 1, 2 is alright. I really like the third one, despite its controversies, I guess, of not including Michael Myers, but it turns out that you don't need him. If you just make a really cool Halloween story, the cheese just adds to it, and it makes it that much more entertaining to watch. 4 and 5 with Daniel Harris, I actually really like, and then that's really where the bus stops for me. I really enjoyed this one, though, directed by David Gordon Green and written by Dan McBride, and they're making 2 more, and they're shooting them back-to-back, and they're releasing in the Halloween seasons of 2020 and 2021, starting with Halloween Kills and Halloween Ends. And obviously Halloween isn't going to end with Halloween Ends, but it's the end of this trilogy, which is a new story being told of Michael Myers now. An old Michael Myers who has his cane and his wheelchair, and he just wants to go out and kill again. He missed his glory days. And he also wants to kill Jamie Lee Curtis. Because they're no longer sister and brother. It's no longer canon. It was canon in Halloween 2, but that was retconned. So now it's just this crazy dude who tried to kill his babysitter and failed. So now he's just on her ass again. So what they're going to do with the story, I'm not sure, but I'm glad to see Blumhouse moving forward with more Halloween movies. Maybe it'll project more characters to come out. Maybe Freddy Krueger, maybe Jason. I know Jason's having licensing issues right now still, but it would be cool to see more of these characters come back out of the shadows if these Halloween movies turn out to be very successful. And, alright, so we're 7 minutes in. Let's get into what everybody's really talking about, though, from San Diego Comic-Con this year, and that's the new Marvel news. So we had Avengers Endgame, which was the end of the Infinity Saga. So now we're starting a whole new slate of movies, because as long as they're making money, they're not going to stop making these movies. You kidding? And we'll talk about it, but the most surprising thing to me, which might be not so surprising if they announce more things at D23, is the lack of movies from characters that we know. There's a couple in there in this new slate that we do know, but for the most part, it's mostly new characters and new stories, wacky sounding stories, which is incredible. I love it. But like, including, they mentioned it. Kevin Feige mentioned it as much. The Black Panther 2, Guardians of the Galaxy 3, Fantastic Four, as he called them mutants, but he's talking about X-Men. All these characters, and then he didn't mention Spider-Man 3 yet, but that's a whole thing with Sony. All these characters that we know that are still around and still have movies to be made weren't announced yet. And it's interesting to me because already this slate is ridiculous. This Phase 4 slate is insane. And it's just the next 2 years of content, including Disney Plus shows and movies. It's a lot. It's a lot. And I don't think... It's going to be interesting to see what happens with Marvel, with their trajectory post-Endgame, if they could find that kind of success moving forward again and replicate what happened there, emulate that, and have lightning strike twice in the same spot. Or they're just going to continue to make fun, interesting movies that might not make the most money, but they're pushing new ground for the genre, and they're doing new things, casting directors that deserve it, putting in diversity in there, and just overall just expanding on the universe in interesting ways that give people more enlightenment on this world, this universe of Marvel characters. So we'll see what happens. And I don't want to waste any more time, but let's just get started. So our first thing that's coming out, so it's a little bit less than a year after Spider-Man Far From Home, is Black Widow, who's finally getting a movie. Scarlett Johansson's not playing a tree in this, though. She's playing a woman, a female character she's played for, at this point, it'll be 10 years, which is crazy. Iron Man 2 came out in 2010. Wow. Excuse me while I take a sip of water while I reflect on the fact that I'm getting older and death is imminent. Okay, so this movie has a cast. It's directed by Kate Shortland, and you have people like Rachel Weisz. Wow. Florence Pugh. She was in Midsommar, and she was great in that. She was also in Fighting With My Family. You have David Harbour, who is playing the Soviet version of Captain America, apparently, which would make sense given the Cold War and whatnot back in the day. And yeah. Well, I guess we'll find out more about that. But the biggest news to me is that Taskmaster is the antagonist, or one of the antagonists of this movie. And for those who don't know, Taskmaster is a cool looking villain. He has like a skull face, and he wears like a hood, but he mimics people's moves. He could basically learn and adapt to the skill set of any Marvel or any character in general. So if you're good at hand-to-hand combat, he'll learn how to combat your combat. If you're Captain America and you fight with your shield and you jump really high and do things, he could actually mimic that and do the same thing. He could basically mimic any character and fight toe-to-toe with the best of them, which is awesome. So I'm just into seeing how they portray that in live action for certain things. It's going to be interesting. This is one of my least anticipated projects out of the whole Marvel slate right now, but I am a fan of the cast. I enjoy Scarlett Johansson when she's not making stupid hot takes online and just in general in interviews with the whitewashing and whatnot. But we'll see how this plays into the world. It takes place between Civil War and Infinity War, so maybe it'll add more to both of those movies. We'll have to see. And then later that year, our first Disney Plus show comes out, which is The Falcon and the Winter Soldier. I'm gonna be honest, at first, this is just, they need ideas to fill Disney Plus shows. This is a cool idea, post-Endgame, to have these two characters together, because they were fun to watch together in Civil War. And they're bringing back Baron Zemo, whose arc was completed at the end of Civil War, but I guess there's still more story to tell with him, and he's still being a villain, even though it kind of seems like he was more on the sympathetic side towards the end of Civil War, when Black Panther prevented him from killing himself. But having him alive probably has more rage infused in him. But Baron Zemo, from what I read in the comics, he was never an outburst type of character. He always played things on the sly side, under the Hydra facade. And we'll have to see how they portray him in this and how they continue with this story. And I'm just ultimately curious to see if this works as a show overall. I think it's going to be fun. I don't know if it's going to leave a lasting impression, but I'm excited to see these actors together again. And after that, November 6th, 2020, the second movie coming out that year, which is the second out of two, The Eternals. And this movie has a cast. You have Kumail Nanjiani, who looks jacked, Brian Tyree Henry, who is in everything, and I'm glad he's in the Marvel Universe now, Salma Hayek, Richard Madden, Angelina Jolie, amongst others. It's directed by Chloe Zhao. And all right, Lauren Ridloff is from Walking Dead also. And then I'm also missing Don Lee and Liam Hugh. But yeah, it's directed by Chloe Zhao, who directed this movie called The Rider, which is apparently a great movie, so I want to watch that before this movie comes out at some point. And don't know anything about this, but apparently these are immortal characters who have been around for a long time. And it's gonna, I assume it's gonna connect to things like Ego, who is Chris Pratt's dad in Guardians 2, because he was supposedly a celestial, and they're gods. So you're bringing real gods, creators of parts of the universe, into this. And that cast is what has me intrigued the most. I always like seeing more of cosmic Marvel, but because I know nothing really about this source material, I'm just looking forward to seeing these particular actors together in a movie, and in particular a live-action Marvel adaptation. So we'll have to see what happens there. Then after that, a few months later, we have Shang-Chi and the Legend of the Ten Rings on February 12th, 2021. And they're bringing back the Mandarin for real this time. And I hope it doesn't really retcon what happened in Iron Man 3, which I actually enjoyed because of its twist. I didn't enjoy how they portrayed Guy Pearce after the fact, but I liked the twist in and of itself. And Iron Man 3 is actually a pretty good movie, in my opinion. But as soon as I saw the subtitle and The Legend of the Ten Rings, I knew we were getting the Mandarin again, because they're bringing back the Ten Rings, which is a terrorist organization. They got this guy, Simu Liu, as Shang-Chi. And apparently, I don't know, my assumption is that he's like a Bruce Lee type, where he's really good at hand-to-hand combat, or like a Liu Kang. And he uses the power of Chi to gain his strength and utilize his strength. Know nothing about Shang-Chi. Apparently, he's trained a lot of famous characters in the comics. Now, I don't think he's going to do that in this. I'm not sure what they're going to do with him, how he's going to fit into this overall world, if they're going to bring him into the Avengers or whatever. If they ever, they haven't announced any Avengers movies, by the way, so we don't know what's going on with Avengers type movies right now. But color me excited for this one. This is one of my most excited because I'm a fan of kung fu movies, and I love like The Raid, and I love action movies that are nitty and gritty. And I'm just a fan of seeing more diversity as well. And they got Awkwafina in this too. We don't know who she's playing, but that girl's going on a big role right now. She's killing it. I'd still have to see The Farewell, and she was in Crazy Rich Asians. She's just getting cast in a lot of things right now. So good for her, honestly. Then after that, a couple months later, we have WandaVision, which is releasing on Disney Plus. And I gotta be honest, I'm not super hyped for this. I'm just not the biggest fan of Wanda and Vision as characters and their whole love story, which did get better in Infinity War and Endgame when they explained it more. I guess more Infinity War because of what happened. And I'm not going to talk about it because it's still... people probably saw it who are watching this, but I'm not going to do that. But I want to know how they're going to implement characters into this despite what happened in Infinity War. And apparently this connects directly into a movie that's coming up, the Doctor Strange sequel, which we'll talk about in a second. But this is, I think, besides this and the next Disney Plus show, my least anticipated thing out of this whole thing. The Disney Plus shows I'm not excited about, really, because we don't know what's coming. We don't know what they're going to be like yet. If they're going to be 6 episodes, how they're going to be paced and whatnot, because I really... gotta be honest, got turned off by the Netflix shows, even though that's different. That's a different subsidiary project, not affiliated with Kevin Feige or Marvel Studios, really. But those were 13-episode seasons, and they dragged out a lot, minus 1 or 2. Daredevil Season 3 is far and away my favorite thing that came out of those shows. I stopped after Season 1 of Jessica Jones, and I stopped after Season 1 of Luke Cage. Didn't even watch Iron Fist, had no interest in it, after what I heard. So we'll see what happens. I'm sure they'll do a good job, but there's no excitement there yet because I don't know what to really grasp yet in reality. So having said that, let's move forward to the second movie of 2021, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness, which right away, I think about Lovecraft, H.P. Lovecraft, and In the Mountains of Madness, which I don't know if that's intentional or not. I'm sure it's a little bit intentional. Apparently this is going to be the first foray for Marvel Studios into gothic horror or horror in general, and it's going to be weird. So there's going to be comedy elements too, and also Scarlet Witch, Elizabeth Olsen, is in this movie because WandaVision, the show, directly correlates and moves into this movie. But I wasn't the biggest fan of Doctor Strange as a movie. I love Scott Derrickson as a director, but I think the movie's fine. But I'm looking forward to seeing Mr. Derrickson really delve into what makes him really work as a director and lean into the horror and lean into the weird. And this is next to another movie that we'll be talking about last. This is my most anticipated movie coming out of this slate, because if it works, it's going to be one of the weirdest movies. That's it. I just can't wait for it. Next, we have Loki, which is the Disney Plus show, which takes place, well, I'm not going to say it, but it directly affects something with Loki as a character, which happened in a moment in Avengers Endgame. And sounds like it's going to be a fun show. I mean, the logo is ridiculous, but I think it's ridiculous for a reason, having every letter be a different font. It kind of looks jumbled. Hopefully it doesn't have any correlation with the quality of the show itself. But I'm color me intrigued, but not excited yet. But I like the idea of an old school Loki being mischievous, as we all know him to be, because this is a Loki who didn't learn his lessons over the course of the Infinity Saga films. So yeah, again, it's Loki being Loki. So if you're into that, I'm sure you're excited for it. Then you have What If, which is another show coming on Disney Plus, which is going to be an anime series, and they got a voice cast of lots of people who have been in these movies. And it's an anime show that basically says, what if the situation happened differently? So let's talk about one of the more popular movies. I don't know. So let's talk about the Avengers one. What if Loki and his army of Chitauri won in Avengers 1? What would have happened to Earth? What would have happened to our characters? Who would have died? Who would have lived? Would Thanos have come down to Earth after the fact to take over and claim Earth? They can really do a lot of cool, interesting things with this, and it's not a show I'm excited for, but it'll be a show that seems to be it'll be an easy digest of 20, 30-minute episodes, just showing little scenarios of things that would have happened if characters didn't succeed, or did succeed, or whatever, so forth. They got Jeffrey Wright voicing the Watcher, and the Watcher is the overseer of the universe, essentially. He's a great actor. He's got a great voice. It makes sense. I'm not excited for this, but again, I'm intrigued. So we'll see what happens there. We still got 2 years out for that. We also got Hawkeye as a show releasing later that fall. And again, I'm not excited for it, but I am intrigued to seeing a Hawkeye post-Endgame training Kate Bishop. It's not confirmed, or is it confirmed? I don't think it's confirmed. Oh, it is confirmed. Okay. I mean, you never really know, but Kate Bishop is basically a young protege of Hawkeye. And she's awesome. She's badass, apparently. I love Jeremy Renner. We'll see who they cast as Kate Bishop. This is a show that's going to be showing. I don't know what else to say. If you're interested in Hawkeye, I'm sure you're excited. But again, for me, since we haven't seen anything yet from Disney Plus in quality of their shows, I'm not excited yet. But it's a cool idea moving forward. And then November 5th, 2021, the last big movie coming out of Phase 4 is Thor: Love and Thunder. Look at this logo. If that isn't Thundercats, He-Man, the Masters of the Universe, I don't know what is. They got Taika Waititi back, and he's going to lean into the weirdness once again. I think they're letting him do whatever the hell he wants. We got Tessa Thompson as Valkyrie, who needs to find her queen. Because she's apparently... What was she? She's for the first open LGBTQ superhero in the MCU, which is cool. And it's fitting that it's Tessa Thompson because she's very supportive of that. And we also, the biggest thing out of this, though, is that Natalie Portman's back as Jane Foster. And we all thought, people who follow these things very closely, we all thought that she was done. She showed up in Endgame for a moment from a deleted scene from Thor 2, but we were all pretty sure that after the madness and verbal violence, the controversies that went down between her and Marvel and Patty Jenkins before she left Thor 2 to make Wonder Woman, she wanted Patty Jenkins on the project, and they were like, nah, let's get Alan Taylor. And she was like, screw this, I'm just going to half-ass my performance now, and I'm going to get the hell out. But I guess she had a meeting with Marvel and Taika convinced her to come back. But if you told me as an actress or an actor that I was going to play one of the titular roles, or literally become the new whatever, like the new Thor, the new Captain America, blah, blah, I would come back. So they did it in pure Comic-Con fashion. Taika went down on one knee and gave the Mjolnir, the hammer of Thor, to Natalie Portman, and she held it up, and it was a nice Comic-Con moment, and it's crazy. So they're adapting the Mighty Thor comic, where Jane Foster becomes the first Thor, the first female Thor, I guess. And apparently in that comic book, Jane Foster has cancer, and she uses the hammer of Thor to become a superhero and eliminate the cancer, but apparently the cancer gets worse once she becomes Thor. So it's a very moral dilemma and a psychological thing going on there. And if they adapt that, this actually could be a pretty emotional story, even though it's a Taika Waititi movie, because Thor Ragnarok wasn't emotional for me. It was fun, but I think it was lacking in emotional depth that I did actually have from the first Thor and a little bit of Thor 2. That was what was missing for me. It's a great new direction for Thor, but it was missing a little bit of the emotion, the weight that I like. So maybe we'll get more of that in this. And I know he's capable of delivering emotion given the hunt for the Wilder people, so we'll have to see. And then the biggest, I guess in my opinion, the biggest announcement, it's not coming with Phase 4. It's going to be coming apparently later on in Phase 5. Might be the mid-20s. It might be a 2025 movie for all we know. But Mahershala Ali came out, and Kevin Feige producer goes, "You have a hat of your own, don't you?" And he goes, "Yeah." He puts on the hat like he's like a number 1 draft pick for the NFL, and on the hat says Blade. So now we have Mahershala Ali playing Blade. over 20 years since the first incarnation of Blade starring Wesley Snipes from the late 90s, which was the first successful Marvel movie to come out. Pretty sure. Yes, it was, because it was Blade, then X-Men, then Spider-Man. And apparently, Mahershala Ali, after he won his Academy Award for Green Book, had a meeting with Marvel, called up Marvel and wanted to have a meeting, and mentioned and pitched an idea for a new Blade. And Kevin Feige was like, yes. And I don't blame him for saying that. We don't know what's happening with this. We don't know if they're fast tracking this project, if they're taking their time with this project. It could be coming out in 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, could be 7 years for all we know, but I don't think it's going to be that far away. But Blade in the Marvel Universe. So if you don't know, if you're watching this in your family or you're not familiar with Blade, Blade is a vampire who hunts vampires. And he's a badass swordsman, combatant. He wears sunglasses, he has one-liners, and he says the F word a lot. I'm also going off of Wesley Snipes' version of the movie. I never read the comics. But yeah, vampires are officially going to be canon now in the MCU. And I'm sure they're not going to go rated R with this because the original movies are rated R. I don't think Disney's going to want an R-rated Blade out there, even though the market is there and it'll make money. Deadpool is all you need to say if you want to show that you can make a very successful superhero movie that's not rated PG-13. But I have more of a feeling they're going to lean this more, since it's going to be part of the MCU, towards PG-13. They can still do a lot of cool things in PG-13. They have done that more so in the last couple phases of movies too, with other characters like Thor, I think, where they've leaned into like more inappropriate, crude things, more violent things. So we'll see. But this is ultimately, the new story that made me scream and with excitement. And I was with my girlfriend at the time when it came out, and my girlfriend must be thinking, why is she with me, as I was freaking out. But yeah, we'll see what happens with all that. Again, as I mentioned before, he mentioned it, but there's no official announcements for dates for characters that we do know, sequels of theirs. We're still waiting to find out what happens with Spider-Man, because Spider-Man came out, seems like it's coming out every 2 years, so we might have a Spider-Man 3 in 2021, because I think it's going to cross $1 billion, which would keep the rights together between Sony and Marvel Studios. And then we have Black Panther 2, we have Guardians of the Galaxy 3, we also have Fantastic Four, which is being developed now, and I'm sure they're looking for a director and whatnot. Might be Peyton Reed, apparently might be Brad Bird. Brad Bird would be a great choice. You have the X-Men. I don't think the X-Men are going to happen anytime soon. I think they might be happening years down the road, when I'm developing gray hairs and losing the ability to walk because my knees are breaking from playing too much high school football. My body's slowly falling apart. And yeah, that's really it. If I'm forgetting any characters right now, I apologize that he mentioned. I don't know if they're going to make another Avengers. If they make a new Avengers, it's going to be different. Are they going to call it like New Avengers, or it's going to just be, if like the crossover event, is it going to be called something different? We'll have to see what happens with that. Maybe D23 will have more answers there. But that's it for today's episode. Thank you for going through all the San Diego Comic-Con madness with me. Even I'm sure you've seen everything already. Those who follow closely, if you're watching this, thank you for supporting today's video. Please give it a like. If you want to comment, talk about what your favorite news story from Comic-Con was down below, please do, and we'll have a little discussion. Ring the bell if you haven't already, of course, all that jazz, and you know by now. I appreciate it. I appreciate all the support, any support, really. Thank you again. And yeah, if you're at San Diego Comic-Con, also tell me what you liked about it. I've only been to New York Comic-Con. I've always wanted to go to San Diego, just can't afford to go out there. I'm going to Anaheim for Star Wars Celebration next August, but apparently it's really tough to get to San Diego Comic-Con unless you like live in the area. I just know getting tickets is a pain, and like getting the hotels and airfare and whatnot. But yeah, that's it for today. Thank you for watching again. Thank you for listening. If you're listening, I'll see you guys next time. Peace out. Marvel movies are going to be made every year until we're dead. So, what a weird thing to say. But it's probably true. Maybe. Mostly sarcastic, but I wouldn't be surprised if that actually happens. Marvel movies, Star Wars movies, Disney movies. That's the more important thing. Avengers just recently also passed Avatar in the box office for all time, domestic and international, just all time. Even though when you adjust the amounts for inflation, it's not nearly there. But for the money that it made in current day, it's the highest grossing movie of all time. Cool. Disney beat Disney. Fantastic. I can't wait to wake up. Everything Disney. Won't take long. They're taking over everything pretty quickly. All hail. All hail. Deuces.